we know that it's the largest, most pervasive threat to the natural environment and the societies the world has ever experienced. The countries that have interfered with the least are paying the heaviest price. Cities and urban areas now at the center of the risk emerging from the triple planetary crisis, yet also have the capacity to mitigate it through strategic addressal of issues of energy, building construction, waste, and mobility. Building low-carbon future cities is not just an environmental necessity, it's the blueprint for sustainable living. The envisioned low-carbon cities will play a vital role in reducing emissions and combating climate change. They promote healthier, more resilient communities by green energy, low carbon and sustainable infrastructure, and eco-friendly open planning. The construction sector plays a crucial role in shaping open environment, providing the infrastructure that supports economic growth, social well-being, and environmental sustainability. However, the construction sector remains a major contributor to global GHG emissions, primarily through the production and the use of carbon-intensive material such as cement, steel, and concrete. So for this subject, colleagues, and if you talk about economic growth, now the inflation and whatever this subject, economic subject, one of the main indicators is the house sector. Yeah, basically you see the price ups and downs and the impact on the broader economy. So for us, it's not an economic issue, also it's an environment issue. So that's why this session this will be one of the focus of this session. As open areas are projected to house 68% of the world's population by 2050. The demand for construction materials will surge, further exacerbating the sector's carbon footprint. Achieving the net zero CO2 emissions in the building sector will require a fundamental shift in how materials are sourced, manufactured, and utilized. Cities are essential in driving demand for green materials through supportive policies and regulations. As large-scale infrastructure projects emerge, government can leverage their purchasing power by establishing building codes and offering incentives for energy-efficient buildings and sustainable materials. This creates opportunities for public-private partnerships, PPPs, to invest in innovative designs, support sustainable sourcing, and foster job creation in the green economy. We must all realize that reaching net zero CO2 emissions could not only be supported through deployment of low-carbon technologies, but also rethinking how resources and materials are used in productive development, looping in the circularity approach, reducing the overall carbon footprint. This is where we see an opportunity for the cities and the industries to come together, creating an open industrial symbiosis. So in this session, experts will discuss and showcase innovative projects, low carbon solutions, and concrete measures in the areas of use of bio-based and low carbon materials for building and transport sector, eco-design, and green buildings. So without further delay, I would like to introduce our distinguished panel, Mr. Richard Binningham, Director of Institute for Future Cities, the University of Strathclyde of the UK. Welcome. Ms. Ardaba, Under Secretary, Philippines Department of Trade and Industry. Welcome. Mr. Christoph Ascot, Country Representative, Jordan, Global Green Growth Institute. Mr. Romeo Montenegro, Medinoro Development Authority Assistant Secretary. Mr. Gonoli, Director of Energy Efficiency in Transport and Agriculture of Tunisia. Welcome. Thank you all once again for joining us today. The format for our session is straightforward. We will start by initial interventions of 8 minutes, where each of you are invited to talk about strategies for future cities and then elaborate on concrete examples and partnerships being implemented in your cities or in the cities you are working on to support decarbonization and accelerate climate action. Please observe the time limit. As after this segment, we will open the floor to the audience for questions. To start, I would like to invite Mr. Bellingham, Director. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Yes? Yes. Okay, that's great. So we work with, in my institute, we work with cities all over the world to deliver holistic sustainability strategies. And that means for us balancing not just environmental goals, but social and economic goals too. Clearly, cities have a vital role in delivering low carbon futures. They're the engines of global economic growth, and that means they create opportunity and generate wealth for the world. So, but as colleagues have already said, they are also responsible for consumption of 75% of global resources, including huge amounts of cement, concrete, steel for construction alone, 78% of world energy, and are also responsible for around 70% of world greenhouse gas emissions. And so that density of economic activity and consumption means they're very reliant on wider regions for pulling in the goods and services that they consume. So by that nature, for cities to achieve zero carbon, this will normally mean they have to develop wider regional and national strategies. And without those wider regional and national strategies, they're probably not going to do it on their own. And it's essentially, there's a relationship where wider regions benefit from cities. They benefit from the economic stimuli, the consumption of those resources, etc., and the cultural activity and opportunity created by cities. But it also means that cities impact on the wider regions around them, and that can be adverse impacts. So there's essentially a symbiotic, synergistic relationship between cities and the wider regions, and there's risk to both. If the region fails or the city fails, then there's risks on both sides. So clearly, cities have a strong inherent self-interest in preserving and enhancing those wider regions and systems and communities and ecosystems that they rely on. So cities need to move to sustainability in a way that's socially and economically acceptable. The technical design of the solution isn't a solution on its own. And that's not easy, delivering on those social and economic goals, because we're living in a time of economic and social stress. And citizens, reasonably have other more immediate priorities on their minds, such as health, jobs. We heard people talk about youth unemployment earlier. Yeah, that's a huge issue in much of the developing world. And of course, personal safety. So a key challenge for cities is, how do they gain and maintain the support of their citizens for sustainability initiatives? How do they deliver that over the long term? And I would argue they do that by delivering things that citizens care about. So citizens do, and people and businesses, they want secure, dependable, affordable energy supplies. They want transport systems that are clean and they work. They want decent housing. They want clean air. They want access to basic services, water, refuse services, health, education. And they want the other things. They want jobs, etc., etc. So they want improved quality of life. And so that means when we're designing our sustainability solutions, our strategies, we have to design them in ways, not design the technical solution and then think afterwards, well, how are we going to sell that to the community? No, we need to involve the community at the beginning. We need to create partnerships, and we need to design solutions that deliver on the things that people care about. And actually, I'm going to finish there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you made a very, very good point, basically, on putting the design of society in a broad context, like a regional context. You should not just focus narrowly on a given city. You need to think about the interactions between this given city and the surrounding environment, like a regional level at least, not mentioning also national level, of course. Actually, yesterday in the ministerial roundtable, also we had already a chance to share this kind of experience. Also, you mentioned that for designing of such cities, you need to have a more really comprehensive, systematic approach that basically need to address all the elements, being this transportation, being this kind of housing, and being some other sector like energy. You need to supply this energy to all the household, also economic activities, and also social sector, health, education. All of this you need to put in one envelope, but not say silo, kind of like a fragment approach. You need to put this in a holistic, integrated manner. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Aldaba, Under Secretary of the Philippines. The floor is yours.
Good morning, and thank you very much. First, maybe I would like to start by citing the growth in the Philippines. We've been experiencing really quite a fast growth over, even prior to the pandemic. In the last 20 years prior to the pandemic, growth rate was over 6%. And currently, it's also over 6%. And according to estimates coming from the Asian Development Bank as well as from other institutions, growth will continue to rise in the country. And as a result, greenhouse gas emissions have also seen a rising, an upward trend, which has been a concern for the country as well, given the strong growth of economic growth projections, along with climate change, of course. We really need to be able to ensure that we're able to address this particular issue. And buildings, construction, these are among the top 5 emitters of greenhouse gases in the country. Buildings, primarily from energy use for heating, for cooling, and lighting. These are the 3rd largest emitter. And of course, the demand for construction and buildings will also continue to rise given the increase in our economic growth. And this would really translate to an increase in the sector's greenhouse gases. And for construction, the growth rate has also been rising, even after, especially after the pandemic. Right now, we're seeing a growth rate of close to 8%. And in terms of the contribution to our economy, it's around 7%. In terms of the number of workers employed, that's also around 7%, which would amount to something like 300,000 workers. And given that, we're actually focusing our efforts towards the adoption of the use of more earth-based materials, which have a lower impact, such as timber, bamboo, agricultural wastes, and biomass. We actually have quite a huge supply of these materials, bamboo, agricultural waste, and other renewable resources. Bamboo is abundant throughout the country, especially in the rural areas, and it's actually not very difficult to grow bamboo. You don't really have to take care of these plants so much. You won't need a lot of workers. And then for agricultural wastes, we're looking into rice husks, coconut husks, and sugarcane bagasse, which are also readily available as agricultural byproducts. And then other renewable resources like wood, rattan, and abaca are also potential sources of bio-based materials. And incidentally, in the exhibit, I hope you've seen those two companies, startup companies, Plantica and Hemp Static, that's abaca or Manila hemp, which the Philippines actually exports. But looking into the production, while actually it looks abundant, but if you look at the growth rate of our production of these agricultural crops, it's been negative. And hence, for me, that's really a signal for us policymakers to do something in order to improve the productivity, because there are other uses of these resources. Now, in terms of adoption, there are some successful companies which are already engaged in this sector. Like, for example, we have the Kawayan Collective Agriculture Cooperative. The company is a leading bamboo construction supplier in the country with over 55,000 bamboo poles graded and treated to the standards set in ISO 19624. And then there's also another successful case. This is the Arthaland Century Pacific Tower. This is a 32-story office building. It's located in Taguig City, which is really one of the highly urbanized area in the country. And the Arthaland Century Pacific Tower is recognized both locally and internationally. It has won the Best Green Development and Best Office Architectural Design at the 2017 Philippines Property Awards. And it also received the U.S. Green Building Council's Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design's Platinum Rating, and Philippine Green Building Council's Building for Ecologically Responsive Design Excellence 5-star certification. And the third example would be the Pasig River Rehabilitation Project, wherein, well, this is government-led, but it has incorporated sustainable construction practices, including the use of recycled materials and energy-efficient technologies. And for us, this really is a model for large-scale, low-carbon infrastructure development in the Philippines. And then I would also want to cite very quickly, I know there are other speakers, but we also have our micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises involved in the production of bio-based and eco-friendly construction materials. We have bamboo furniture and construction enterprises, along with coconut-based SMEs or MSMEs, including the micros. And startups and innovative businesses are also focusing on sustainable construction technologies and materials. We have eco-friendly building materials startups. And of course, in terms of the regulatory and legal framework, we have all the laws, but again, there are some challenges in terms of the implementation, which I can probably discuss in the next round. Thank you.
Thank you, Undersecretary, for sharing experience of the Philippines in the field of construction sector, particularly by using these renewable recycling materials. I think you see also the basically how many this kind of like SMEs also are, say, thriving in this sector. This is really offers maybe good opportunities for the construction industry. Yeah, but you will anyway talk about some challenges in later on. Anyway, thank you. Now our next panel will be Mr. Ascot, country representative of Global Green Growth Institute. Mr. Ascot, you have the floor, please.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much. And thank you for the organizer to allow me to speak about the topic of industrial decarbonization and necessary financing. This is also very relevant for cities because to ensure that all the supply chain, the product and the materials consumed in cities are low carbon and green. This works. Yes, so just a couple of words before I start on our organization. GGI is an intergovernment organization. We are headquartered in Seoul, Korea, and have 45 member states at the moment, supporting them in a strong, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth transition, which we define as green growth. So within industrial decarbonization, I want to very much focus on hydrogen as a potential for a significant decarbonization throughout the industry in many different fields. At the moment, you may know that 90% of the hydrogen is used in refineries and the fertilizer industry. We see significant potential for evolving application in, for example, steel making, fuel blending, especially natural gas and hydrogen, and also heavy transport. The main issue is that at the moment, hydrogen is considered or called gray hydrogen because it's produced using methane or coal as feedstock, which is I'll say has as a byproduct produce CO2. What we want to do is to shift to green hydrogen, which is produced through renewable energy and water. The byproduct is oxygen, which, as you know, is not, unlike CO2, a greenhouse gas. So the idea is to really shift any use of hydrogen and fossil fuel with green hydrogen. I want to emphasize these hard-to-abate sectors for which it's difficult to decarbonize. Today, we see green hydrogen being utilized in refining product, in the production of green ammonia, which is a fertilizer, in green methanol as a fuel, and some experiences in long-haul trucking. In the medium term, we're starting to see some interest from the aviation industry for sustainable aviation fuel, also in the steel industry and the shipping industry. For example, a company like, you may know, a company like Maersk has committed to utilize sustainable fuel for his for the fleet of his ship, and also the International Civil Aviation Authority is really active in sourcing green hydrogen. In the longer term, especially relevant for cities, for construction material, we see high potential for green hydrogen to shift the use of fossil fuel in cement kiln, Also, green hydrogen can be used for energy storage and also in a different type of steel making process, which is called blast furnace injection. And also, we see some testing in the field of passenger cars. The problem is the cost. So we need to look at, if we want to accelerate this transition, we need to look at how much is needed to produce gray hydrogen versus green hydrogen. At the moment, gray hydrogen is produced between 1 and 2 USD per kilo, whereas green hydrogen is still much more expensive, between 2.5 to 7 kilogram per kilo. So the challenge is to see how we can reduce those costs. If we look a little bit more deeply, we can see that for gray hydrogen, 30% of the cost is the capex, the investment cost. 65% is the fuel, such as methane or coal. Whereas for green hydrogen, we have a capex at 41%. Electricity is the fuel, it's at 29%. We need also water and the process and the cooling. So we need to find some innovative solutions to bring down some of this cost. Electricity, for example, if we take electricity, we can think of using the surplus of hydropower, the surplus of wind power or solar power at non-peak hours to bring down those costs. Also, there are innovative solutions in terms of the way hydrogen like water and renewable energy is transformed into hydrogen through electrolyzers. So there are innovative solutions in electrolyzing solution that can bring down the capex. Also very important to note that some off-taker of hydrogen are willing to pay a premium in case of green hydrogen. For example, in Jordan, in order to export to the EU market, there will be more and more restriction around the EU market for low carbon supply chain. And a company like Heineken has offered Jordanian supplier to a very strong premium in case they shift to green hydrogen production. But for the sake of time, I'm not going to review all options. I just want to introduce two innovative options, especially on the financing side, to make green hydrogen more cost competitive. So the first one is climate finance. Most of you may be familiar with climate finance, but climate finance is essentially finance tied to emission reduction or to adaptation to climate change. And climate finance has a large opportunities to provide technical assistance grant, guarantees and concessional loans. The main source of climate finance is familiar to us, being the Green Climate Fund. So climate finance can be blended with loan at market rates from domestic banks that can also issue green bonds, and also together with national budget from government, making financing of green hydrogen much more competitive. Government, even though this transition must be led by the private sector, because industry should be profitable and should be then led by the private sector. Government have a role to play, because this is a very strategic move for energy security, essentially, to be able to produce green hydrogen at the national level. And also what can development partners like UNIDO or GGI do is to help the private sector to access climate finance. And my last slide is on another solution is called carbon finance. As you may know, also in 2015, most countries in the world have committed and signed up for the Paris Agreement to commit to reduce their emission of greenhouse gases. And in that agreement, under the Article 6, there is an opportunity for countries to go ahead with bilateral agreements for the trading of emission reductions. So green hydrogen projects are ideal for that. For example, we can calculate the amount of emission reduction by the displacements of fossil fuel with green hydrogen, then identify a buyer, and many, I would not say many, but several countries have now expressed interest in purchasing emission reductions from partner countries. Those are, for example, Norway, and Norway is about to commit to much more. Sweden, Switzerland, to name a few. Once the project is implemented and emission reduction can be monitored and verified, these buying country would provide a result-based payment based on a ton of CO2 per USD, basically, a USD per ton of CO2 abated through this green hydrogen project. So carbon finance was very popular, let's say 15 years ago. It went down, but we expect more and more transaction to happen, and this is also a very good opportunity to finance the transition for green hydrogen, to make sure we have at the city level some materials and products that are green throughout their supply chain. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Ascot, for really your very detailed introduction about the innovative solutions for industrial decarbonization and the support production and promotion of low carbon products such as steel and cement, particularly through basically the application of green hydrogen, and how to access to climate financing, carbon financing, to basically to scale up the application of green hydrogen. Thank you. I'm now pleased to introduce Mr. Montenegro, Assistant Secretary. Mr. Montenegro, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you also for the opportunity to be part of this very important global conversation on a very important subject that affects all of us anywhere in the world. I am here to speak about the context we currently have in Mindanao, which is the second largest island in the Philippines. And of course, pretty much a major source of the country's minerals, including nickel, where we are second in the world next to Indonesia. And also about nearly half of the country's food products are coming from. And major export-oriented in terms of several of our high-value crops. Let me just provide additional context to what early on was stressed by Yusek Fita Aldaba in terms of the overall broad strategy of the Philippines in terms of energy transition. In Mindanao, where we are trying all our efforts to ensure alignment to the national strategy as well as to the global strategies in terms of energy transition, is very much reflected to a number of our initiatives in the local government and as well as in the private sector. And we all are geared towards advancing our growth and development in Mindanao, which today comes at a pivotal moment when we are accelerating all our efforts to achieve growth and at the same time ensuring that we are also pursuing the parallel efforts of low carbon economy or low carbon strategy. And that's why, for instance, in the case of construction, the entire value chain had to be seen, had to be understood. We have to look at which in the entire value chain can we come in with specific strategy. Otherwise, if we are doing it and pursuing it in a fragmented approach, for instance, we may not be able to achieve what we have set out to accomplish in the bigger picture. But everything has to start with a policy framework. That's why we have to also make sure that enabling policy and policy mechanisms at the national government, cascaded to the local government, are being made available to make it viable for local mechanisms to work and to make it viable for private sector to come in. Because without private sector, there is no capital inflow. And for a sector such as energy, which is capital, private sector driven, there has to be a great sense of viability for private sector to come in. Therefore, this policy framework will now be the basis by which they come in with specific investments and strategies. And so, for instance, in the case of the Philippines, we now have quite a number, in the last 3-4 years alone, we have quite a number of policy instruments laid out by our Department of Energy, by our Department of Trade and Industry, in terms of making energy transition viable. We have renewable portfolio standards which mandate all distribution utilities and retail suppliers of electricity to source out a significant part of their supply from renewable energy. We also have green energy option, which now allows industries to source out renewable energy supply to power their manufacturing or to power the industries. An example of this in Davao is the largest cement manufacturing company in Mindanao, of course, which is headquartered, with its headquarters based in France. But of all its cement plant all over the world, their cement plant in Davao has the lowest GHG emission because their boiler is co-fired with coal and biomass. So 1,000 degree of heat to turn limestone into clinker is powered by 50% coal and 50% agri-wastes. So they move around many areas and provinces in Mindanao to collect agricultural waste turned into pellets and then fed into the boilers. That cement manufacturing plant also last month had signed an agreement with a geothermal power plant also based in Mindanao, so that 20% of their energy requirement will be powered from geothermal energy, in line with their target of 65% renewable energy powered cement manufacturing plant by 2030. So these are classic examples of how we would want it pursued in a more calibrated, purposive, strategic approach in which gap of the entire value chain of the industry. So that's the upstream of the construction, because when they make the cement for the construction, the building of many other vertical or horizontal projects, the cement that are being fed into these construction materials are also being produced using renewable energy. Now, moving on to another very important sector, which is transportation. And in the Philippines, as cited earlier by Yusek Fita, our transport sector accounts for around nearly 15% of the overall GHG emission of the Philippines. That's about, last year alone, or 2 years ago, that's about 35 million tons equivalent of carbon dioxide, which is already half the entire GHG emission of more than 70 MTCO2 of Austria, for instance. That's transport alone in the Philippines. That's why our government is looking at starting the transition of our, many of you may be familiar about jeepneys. That's the ubiquitous public transport we have in the Philippines, across all urban areas and even in the rural areas. And these jeepneys are powered 100% by diesel. And so you can just imagine the amount of GHG emission contributed by these public utility jeepneys. In the city of Davao, in Mindanao, where I come from, we are piloting for all across the Philippines a transition to modern transport. That's why in the city of Davao, which is the fourth most competitive, highly urbanized city in the Philippines, next to cities in Metro Manila, for instance, is setting the pilot and benchmark for transitioning our transport system. That's a population of 1.8 million with a size that is 4 times bigger than Metro Manila, 6 times of the city of Cebu, and 3 times bigger than Singapore. What it intends to put forward in the next 3 years is a modernized public transport in the city of Davao to phase out public utility jeepneys and replace it with modernized buses. This, the Davao Public Transport Modernization Project is a $1.3 billion project. $300 million is equity by the local government to demonstrate that it intends to invest for this project, and $1 million is by loan from ADB. And this is going to be the country's first network solution to address urban congestion in the city of Davao, and hopefully later on be replicated in all other major urban areas of the country, especially in Metro Manila. Initially, yes, it will deploy diesel buses, but of the 1,000 buses that will be part of this project, 400 will be electric buses to demonstrate a gradual increase of electric buses in the years to come with the implementation and the continuing operation of this project. This is going also to be a smart enabled system with automated fare collection, which is a transition also from the usual paying by coins, which is the reality for our paying for transport, public transport in the Philippines. And an automated vehicle locator, a real-time passenger information, and a traffic signal prioritization to make sure that it operates seamlessly with the complex traffic system we have in the Philippines. Metro Manila is one of having, if not, in many times across surveys, had the worst traffic in the world, probably neck to neck with Indonesia or Jakarta, for instance. That's why this is a purposive effort of the government to find a way by which we address traffic congestion at the same time integrating renewable energy in the process. And so we look forward that over the next 3 years of this project, in terms of its eventual implementation, that we would see it already being serviced or of service to our constituencies and to the riding commuters. This will also complement the ongoing proliferation right now in the Philippines of electric vehicles, hybrid, and plug-in hybrid. But with the challenge for now of availability of charging stations, some of the facilities are being built for free of use by certain malls in the Philippines. For this one, in the city of Davao, one mall had built in a charging station free of use for shoppers would be bringing their electric vehicle to that particular shopping mall in the city of Davao. These are also being made available in certain malls in Metro Manila. We are also very much purposive and aggressive to campaign for rooftop solar in many buildings and many establishments across the city of Davao and in Mindanao. An example of this is a 1 megawatt solar rooftop on top of a university, the Ateneo de Davao University in the city of Davao. So these are some of the bits and pieces, but if all put together, will create a big impact for us in terms of our march towards energy transition and low carbon economy in Mindanao. Thank you, and Edward.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Montenegro, for sharing experience from Mindanao, particularly the city of Davao, and how to transform this traditional transport sector into an intelligent, modern transport sector. Thank you. Now we move to our next speaker, Mr. Kanononi, Director of Energy Efficiency in Transport and Agriculture of Tunisia. Mr. Kanononi, I invite you to take the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Modérateur. Bonjour à tout le monde.
And good morning, everybody, and thank you, first of all, to UNIDO for organizing this event, and of course, thank you to all of the participants, all who are taking part in this organization, and thank you for the invitation for me to take part. Now, I will present the energy transition program in Tunisia for the Tunisian cities. So before beginning, let me introduce a little bit, give you a brief overview of Tunisia itself. We are a country of 12 million people with around 164,000 square kilometers. We have an emissions indicator of 2.6 equivalent CO2 tons per inhabitant per capita. In geographic terms, we have 24 governorates and 350 communes. On energy efficiency, we have around 8.467 tons distributed among the different sectors. Transport, of course, is a big consumer, and then we have the building sector, residential, the tertiary sector. They are major energy consumers. Tunisia is a country that is energy deficient. We've had an energy shortage which has been worsening through to today. And this, of course, has had an impact, whether it be on for energy forecasting and also on public services. All types of energy in Tunisia are subsidized. And so this has an impact on public finances, this energy situation. And this is why we are now looking at how we can reduce this gap between our energy needs and the energy resources that we have, and also to reduce the financial impact. So, to do this, we have an energy transition strategy. We're now into the second version of this strategy. It began back in the 1980s, but now we have a new energy strategy that runs through to 2030 with a long-term strategy through to 2050. Now, under the new strategy, we're going to reduce the energy demand by 30% and to improve our energy mix by 35% by 2030 and 50% by 2050. And, or rather 50% by 2035, and then we have a low carbon strategy, which is working for carbon neutrality by 2050. Currently, we have a carbon intensity indicator of 0.5, and we want to reach 0 by 2050. In terms of climate change, we have signed the Paris Agreement. And of course, under this agreement, we need to reduce our carbon intensiveness by 45% to 2050 compared to the 1990 indicator. So, to achieve all of this, we have a national action plan in every different economic sector, but this is at the national level. Now, at the local level, of course, the cities, the different districts have their role to play. The cities are, of course, energy consumers for the different facilities, equipment, infrastructure, and are also regulators, planners when it comes to local development, working through urbanization plans, building permits, and so on. And they are also project partners, because they have the possibility of investing in different projects under public-private partnerships and so on. They also have an important role to play as communicators, whether communicating with the public or communicating with the local economic actors. So let me just mention a few projects that are currently being carried out. First of all, the e-mobility program in Tunisia. This was a program developed by the National Energy Management Agency in Tunisia, working with UNIDO. So, this program, its goal is, of course, to reduce the energy cost, to reduce the energy impact at the local level, and to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in the transport sector. This project has $13 billion, and it began in 2023. $13 million, rather, began in 2023, and it covers 3 cities. Now, it's going to support these cities in their e-mobility transition through the purchase of e-mobility equipment. For example, e-vehicles, e-taxis for private operators, and also installing charging infrastructure and solar energy facilities to fuel these vehicles. Now, at the national level, we're also updating the fiscal framework so as to be able to introduce these e-vehicles and to build the charging infrastructure, to train the people needed, the operators on the ground who are going to be running these fleets. Now, the second program is an alliance of communes for energy transition. This is bringing together the 350 communes to reach the energy goals across all of these communes. They currently have all the information they need on the available equipment in the communes. So all of this information has been brought together on a platform, an energy accountability platform for the communes to support the communes in their work to play their part in reaching our climate and energy goals. Now, this program covers all of the different areas. For example, the public fleets, urban mobility within the territories, diversification of energy sources, also, of course, communication and financing, purchases, choice of equipment. So we are working to cover all of the different sectors, and we've taken the Energy Award approach. This is a Swiss approach which certifies the work being done. So we've got pilot communes that have been chosen to test this mechanism. We have begun with a political commitment at the local level, putting in place the teams, the energy teams within the communes. They will have one person working in each specific sector to ensure the and also the needed political support, the political backup, and the local experts to provide the expert support to help the communes to put in place their energy action plans in line with the national strategy. So this is a participative approach involving all of the different local actors and giving priority to actions and also to evaluation of the programs, and auditors, accredited auditors who come from the National Energy Management Agency and have been accredited by the European Energy Award to work in Tunisia and in the wider region. So this is a alliance that we have put in place for the wider region, for the Middle East and North Africa region. So through the program and through the results of the energy audits that are then carried out, we take the results and we use this to identify renewable energy potential for the building sector, for the housing, etc., sectors to cover energy needs through solar energy, for example. We have found the financing needed to implement this project to cover all of the buildings with solar power installations to provide their electricity needs. And this is financed through the Italian Development Agency. This is a project that is already underway and will be completed by the end of 2026. So that briefly is what I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Canoni, I think, for sharing insights from Tunisia. Now we now have the first round of the intervention from the panelists. It's time for us to have maybe some kind of interactions between the panel members and the audience. Now the floor is open to the audience. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to raise your name, then or raise your hand. Okay? Anybody? Any questions to the panel members or any comments you would like to share? Oh, yes. Okay, please. Please introduce yourself before we make your comments, questions.
Thank you very much. Marco Mattini from the Energy and Climate Action of UNIDO. One question to Mr. Bellingham, talking about synergies, coordination between regions and cities. Which level of institutional mechanisms are in place to support this coordination in your experience? And then one question to Ms. Aldaba related to the biomass-based construction material. What are the regulatory issues? I mean, if this transition to the use of more biomass-based construction material has an implication on regulatory level, and what might be the duration or the process? Thank you.
Thank you. No?
Okay, thank you for that. Is my mic on? Sorry.
Yeah, it's on.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, interesting question about how cities can create this coordination with wider regions, and this will vary very significantly between different parts of the world. Some parts of the world do have regional governments, and they may make a viable partner for city governments, though there can be political rivalries there. The regional government may not have the same political complexion as a city government, and that can create issues in terms of coordination. The other key mechanism I would mention is that, of course, cities are reliant on systems, energy, transportation, communications, banking, retail systems, etc., that are in many parts of the world commercially controlled. They are not under the power of city governments, and often those wider commercial entities will not think of their businesses in city terms. So I would suggest that cities bringing in the organizations that own and operate those critical systems on which they rely, bringing them in as partners at an early stage, I think is a very important step. I would say that's maybe more important than coordination with regional government.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Aldaba.
Thank you for that question. Well, in terms of the constraints, we all know that green buildings are attractive, they are environmentally friendly, and they play a very important role in reducing GHG emissions and protecting the environment. But still, although I highlighted certain successful cases a while ago, there is yet to be widespread adoption of these new technologies. And major challenges for green buildings are the cost, also awareness, the construction materials availability, along with skills, and also there's a need for, given all these weaknesses, there is really a role for government to play, particularly in providing more support in terms of maybe tax subsidies, credits, interest rates, to encourage the expansion of green buildings and awareness of its benefits. And then there are also other challenges, such as lack of awareness, lack of information, and education about the benefits of green building, both private and public benefits. And then there's limited access to design, construction materials, and skilled workers, and lack of guidelines and policies promoting green buildings. And in addition, there are also lingering concerns over the performance and limitations of bio-based materials and wood-based building systems, which still are currently perceived as having a higher risk of damage. And for most people, traditional construction materials are are more preferred due to their higher resale value as compared to those based on wood and the new bio-based materials that we are trying to promote. And these perceived structural benefits, durability, maintenance, thermal, fear of insect attack, and costs are persuading home occupants to select brick, for example, over timber. And another barrier would be ignorance or lack of knowledge of green building materials, and this really is impeding implementation. So we're actually really pursuing more collaboration, particularly with the UNIDO. We are actively seeking partnerships with UNIDO as well as with other international organizations and other countries to share best practices, access to new technologies, and attract investments in sustainable construction. At the same time, of course, there are currently two very interesting projects that we have with the UNIDO. They're still in the proposal stage, and we're currently waiting for the approval. I want to mention this because I think this would really create a big impact, create a big difference in terms of achieving our goals of really promoting a more sustainable growth of the construction industry. And I've already given the numbers a while ago in terms of the contribution, in terms of the growth of this sector. And really, we would be needing a lot of support from the international community if we are to achieve our commitments under the Paris Agreement. So one of the important proposed projects we have is a deep decarbonization of the construction industry. And this is really focusing on innovation, promoting startups that would be offering low carbon solutions. And the support is not only going to be given during the ideation stage, but really it would provide all the necessary support up to the time that we're able to really launch these innovative solutions into the market. And possibly, well, it's an aspiration maybe to turn some of these startups that we will be supporting into unicorns in the future. And then the second one is on low carbon and greening the cement and the construction industry, which would really be more focused in terms of improving our ecosystem, especially in terms of promoting more coordination, collaboration among the different stakeholders in the country. There are so many important legislations that have already been approved, and these are all already being implemented by different government agencies, and hence the strong coordination would really be crucial if we are to achieve our goals. And at the same time, there would also be a component that would be providing some projects for demonstration, showcases, and I think that would really help in terms of encouraging more investors, more consumers to move towards these green products and green construction and green buildings.
Thank you, Undersecretary, for this very, I would say, relevant answer to the question raised by Martini. Since due to time constraint, and we're more or less run out of time, so I think since the panelists already shared in a very detailed manner, I think basically surround is the subject of this session. From the beginning now, we have basically now the overall kind of like a kind of approach towards development of sustainable cities. Then we dive deeper into specific sectors, including construction sector, transportation sector, also energy planning, yeah, for the sustainable cities. We have really pretty diversified as a experience from, I think, a few countries. I think that the insightful, say, experience or points shared by the panelists should have inspired our colleagues here or participants here, also say beyond. Let us maybe give our panelists a round of kind of applause for their contribution to this discussion. Also to you, our audience, for your interest and active participation. I hope that the exchanges and discussion here has resonated well, say, with your thoughts. Thank you for your attention.